Well, it looks like we're live on Friday night from the Boneyard. And could you please introduce yourself? It's such an honor to be on live with you tonight.
Oh, thanks so much, Amanda. My name's Jay Burr. I go with the first initial N, as that is my first name, not N, but first initial N, Jay Burr. And thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, I'm definitely grateful you're here. Absolutely. I want to get right into it with your No Longer on the Run song that came out a little while ago. But like I was saying to you backstage, I'm mostly a metalhead and I've been listening to this for the last couple of days. So can you tell me about it?
Sure. Well, I think not to paint too broad or narrow a picture, but I believe most all of us, when we're in our younger years, we tended to need to run away from things. We had to uh, escape a lot of the things that were holding us back in our lives. I had relocated as a 10-year-old kid to from Winnipeg to a very rural, backwoodsy small town in southern Ontario, which will remain nameless. And there really wasn't. It's tough when you move to a place when you're not from there. You know what I mean? You don't
I
grow
do.
up. You don't grow up in a small town. There's never really room for you. So I felt, even though I had, the fair things that happened there, I had an inkling when I got my license at 16, as most kids did back in my day, or shortly after. As soon as I had wheels, man, I was friggin' free. I was gone, and I couldn't wait to get and escape all that and out on the road and gone, never to come back. So that song is basically about that. When you're young and wild and carefree, you make some reckless decisions, you get in a bit of trouble, you kind of experience life the way that I believe we're supposed to experience life, which is to make mistakes, screw up, pick up, move on, try and keep your nose clean, but it's part of living. And all of a sudden you wake up one day and what the hell? I'm 50 plus, I got kids, there ain't no crazy decisions being made anymore. So it's reflection upon those years, the wilder earlier years.
Right on, right on. And do you find a difference in not necessarily who you were back then, but the way you carried yourself from the person who you wrote the song about to who you are now?
Absolutely. I think a lot of us, it takes a long time in life to kind of grow up, a bit.
Hmm.
We tend to have our youthful idealism and hold that in a lot of our values, but as you recognize in life, you turn certain corners and points in your life, and what was so bloody important to you when you're 20 years old is nowhere near as important to you when you're 30 or 40. And by the time you're
Hmm.
50, you've basically gone full circle. You're on the other end of the spectrum. So,
Interesting. Right on, right on. We were talking about musical highlights earlier and backstage before we started the show. And
mhm.
what are some of the musical highlights? Because I know you were going to start telling me, and we kind of waited until we started. So, what are some of the musical highlights? You had mentioned festivals.
Well, first thing I'll preface that to saying, let's hope that we can get back to that thing again of playing live music and playing festivals and having people gather. Because let me tell you, a year and a few months of total isolation and not playing with anyone but myself, I can't wait to be able to interact with my musical compadres again.
Oh, I can
Um,
imagine.
so, in any case, highlights. Jesus, the funny thing of it is some of the biggest highlights of my life, musically, were impromptu things on stage. Um, being at the Calgary Folk Festival with in the bass player's workshop, because they have different workshops, or odd instrument workshops and stuff like that, where you got someone that plays a chainsaw and another person like me that plays the saw or the tuba or something, and you put these people together and some really, really incredible things will happen impromptu, like without ever a script happening or without ever getting together. One of the highlights I can mention is playing with Billy Cowsill and Laura Love in Calgary. It was probably 2010, something like that. Not 2010, 2000. Sorry, I'm dating myself.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, just having incredible talent. Me crashing the bass workshop in the Winnipeg Folk Festival, 1994, and playing with guys like Michael Manring and Gilles Benoit, are very astute and some of the finest musicians in the world, playing the Vancouver Island Music Festival in 2009 with a super assembly of the programmer there, Doug Cox, who's a very well-known guitar and slide player, has been directing that festival for well over a decade. He puts together a super band where there's people from every walk of life. We had rappers and beatboxers with a horn section from the band that I was playing in, to you name it, Jane Bennett and her jazz group, and put together a 90-minute concert in the course of a few days. Just assemble, work together on some ideas, and then boom, you're on stage a few days later and creating a concert from nothing.
That's so fun.
It certainly is.
That's so fun. And like you say, the most amazing moments in musical history usually happen without any kind of script or, this is, plan or anything like that, which is really nice. It's kind of magical, actually.
Yeah, no premeditation. There's no chance to prepare for a lot of it. It's just, that's the reason why the best of the best tend to just, not to put myself on. I love standing on the shoulders of greatness as well, because anytime you get to play with a musician that's better than you, it just makes everything better.
Oh, I can imagine.
Right? Having your ass kicked continually in your life and you being the low man on the totem pole, no better place to be if you want to get good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you got to work at it to get good too, right? And who better to work at it with than the best of the best?
That's right.
So you had mentioned some interesting instruments like chainsaws and saws and stuff like that. And I had seen today that you are part of Tom Waits' band.
Tom Waits Appreciation Congregation, yes.
Love him. How did that come to be? How did you start or, find them?
Well, let me talk about another thing here first to preface that. Prior to playing in TWAC, as we call it for short, Tom Waits Appreciation Congregation,
right?
I've had the good fortune of playing with Classic Albums Live. I'm not sure if you know of that outfit and know who and what they do.
Yes.
You do? Okay.
I do.
For your audience members that might not know, Classic Albums Live has been a growing franchise started by Craig Martin in Toronto back, now more than 15 years ago. He had kind of hit the craze of not created the craze and hit on the nostalgia of more or less the boomer generation of people that grew up listening to albums note for note, cut for cut.
Right.
And he assembled a ever-growing coterie of the countries, and not even this countries, but internationally, the best musicians in the world that can play Zeppelin note for note, that can play Van Halen note for note, that can play Aerosmith, can play all those seminal albums from front to back, for each lick, each note, every drum fill, every anything, and start assembling a crew of musicians to be able to carry out executing these seminal albums And many of my cast, many of the, not many, our leader, Marty Morin, who's played in everything from Godot to Klaatu to Wireless, FM. He even played in Toronto for a stretch. He's our leader. He's a great vocalist, multi-instrumentalist. He is a Classic Albums Live, as we call Cal, member. He had seconded me after doing some shows, doing The Wall and a couple of Beatles shows, that he and another player, the former keyboard player with Blue Rodeo, James Gray, who passed away quite a few years ago now, and Braxton Hicks on woodwinds, as another Classic Albums Live member. He said to me, I want to really do a Tom Waits show and act. We're not going to dress up like them. We don't have to look like any of the members of the band or whatever. We're just playing his repertoire. And the rest is history. And it really is history, because the last gig we did was November 9th, 2019, because Marty went in for vocal surgery. And we haven't played a gig since because of the pandemic. Crazy. Played for 10 years in that group, working regularly.
Crazy. Yeah. So in any ways, because we don't really like to talk about pandemic and COVID and stuff like that, but is there any positivity musically that has come out of it for you?
Well, I said it on my on my BandCamp page that if it weren't for this pandemic, I would have never got these two albums done. I recorded, and I know others, guys like Mike T. Kerr, who's an incredible musician locally here in Hamilton, I believe. It might be Toronto. Has put out 5 albums since the pandemic. So he's putting out an album a month. I'm not that prolific. I got together, I did 2 albums that I played and performed virtually everything by myself in the course of the last 8 months. So it kicked me in the arse because I had the time. And when I have the time, I tend to put my time to creative stuff, It's one of these things that when you're so busy, when I've lived as a musician my entire life, I've spent my entire life chasing that $100 gig, and some of the other ones are better, but it's basically working part-time and playing music full-time. I never have the time to be creative. I never have the time to sit down and put my feet up. I don't get home till 2 a.m. on most nights when I'm working. And then I got to work a part-time job and raise two kids now. I got 3 kids. Mm-hmm. One's out of the house. So it's like, I don't have time. Yeah. Now, COVID gave me time. That's why those albums are there.
And they're good albums too. Like I said, I'm metalhead, but I've been listening for the last couple of days. It's just, I'm hooked. It's nice to find new music that I can really just get right into.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
So, well, I appreciate good music, and there's definitely some good stuff. So how did you get into music? How did you discover that music was your thing?
Well, I started lessons at the age of 4, formal lessons at the age of 4, and on organ, because we had one in the house. Mm-hmm. And I started with that, but by the time I was 10, I was interested in drums. I had my first set of drums when I was taking an electric guitar. And of course I could play the keyboards, and it just kind of continued from there. I recognized also early on that there was something odd about me and my acuity in my hearing, because I could learn songs from listening to them on the radio, and then be able to play them. When I played them back on the keyboards, I noticed it's in the exact same key as the song, as I heard the song. I started thinking, I got this sneaking suspicion. So my sister, a year and a half older than me, I got her to sit in the living room and plunk away on the piano notes while I named them off while I sat in the kitchen. So I didn't realize, but then realized that I had perfect pitch, or absolute pitch as it's called, which is the ability to hear a note and name it without ever seeing what it is, just on its pitch alone. So that had me understand that I had a heightened awareness musically and sonically of what was around me. So I pursued music. I started in grade 6, was in, of course, band, high school band. And I started on I auditioned on everything. I auditioned on flute and clarinet and percussion and brass. And because I was a big kid, my teacher put me on the tuba. And the rest kind of is history because I'm a tuba player. That is my primary instrument.
Right
But I play a lot of instruments.
Yes, that was my next question, is along with all those, because those are all like not things that are normally named. What else do you play? I imagine you have a list of instruments that you play.
I don't really have a list, but I just keep in mind. Now, granted, things have shifted over the past decade to where I don't really play keyboards, although I started on keyboards. I don't play keyboards very much, but yes, of course, I can play keyboards. Now it's like down fourth or so on the list, but I play tuba, trombone, guitar, bass, drums, keyboards. I can play harmonica. I also can play the saw. And virtually anything you kind of give to me, I can make music on it, but I don't necessarily gig or play them in a recording or written context. And I sing. So all those things are basically virtually everything that's comprised on my album I can play, but some of the things I actually gave over to a few other people that I knew would do a better job than I would.
Right on.
Hire out the drum, or not hire out, but call in some favors to some drum pals that have the wherewithal and the setup to be able to do stuff at home. So I'll also make that known that I played virtually everything on my albums, save for a few things. I can't play pedal steel, so I had Chris Altman play pedal steel on that album, and Jim Casson on drums, Bruce Turney on keys, Dave Johns on bass, my 2 kids playing violin on one of my songs that I wrote some stuff, and the list goes on as far as those players, but no one did anything in my studio. We all did it over the wire. Like
amazing.
I would record the guides and then send that as a file out for someone to listen to, track the drums on top of, send me the files back, me assemble them into the session. So no humans interacting in person. It was all done in the air. Right? Now,
do you find that you prefer that process, or you prefer the process of being? I know I get mixed reviews.
It's not a rhetorical question, I know, but
no, no, it's not. But I get mixed reviews. I've only asked that question a few times, but some people love it and some people hate it. And now I'm curious about everybody.
The funny thing is, I have to say, being someone that's lifelong, as I spoke earlier, what I spoke to you earlier about playing with great talent, playing with people that just,
which I want to hear about after.
It's just, there's no comparison, and there's you can't create magic multi-track. I mean, you kind of can. Guys like Jacob Collier, a few others, might be able to track and create some magic, but magic happens in the air live with people when you're playing together, right? Mm-hmm. Layering stuff on top is just, you're not interacting with anyone or anything else, right? It's just, what can I say? I appreciate that I can be able to do this stuff myself, but given my druthers, no. I want to play with my people, like my people that are gonna kill these tracks. They're gonna chew it up. They're gonna do far better than I could do in my lame ass self trying to play, half-ass the drums and have to spend half the day editing it together to make it sound good. I want people that are gonna kill it. They're just gonna come in, boom, it's done. Stick a fork in his ass. It's over.
Yeah. I hear that, definitely. So it's a different kind of chemistry when it comes to doing this. It's nice to be able to still have the opportunity to put it together, but it's not. I agree. It's not the same as I mean, I don't claim to be a musician. I never have. I'm a writer. I'm behind the scenes, or I'm in the mosh pit. That's where I belong. But I can identify with you on the not being face to face for that magic, because I spend a lot of time with my publisher, and I haven't seen her in a long time. And we've put books together, but it's not the same.
Well, I liken it as well. I mean, it's not. It's different. Like, take for instance something with classic albums live. As I said, where it's like scripted, note for note, cut for cut. There's not going to be any kind of like, oh, check out, look at the crazy stuff. Wow, it's like, no, that's what TWAC's for. That's what the Tom Waits Appreciation Congregation is for. We will never play a song exactly the same way twice, ever, never.
Right.
It's going to take chances. It's going to go out on a limb. We're going to interpret how we feel in the moment. Right. Every single night, every time we play, it's never going to be the same twice. And that I love.
I'm really, I wish I could be at every venue that gets to open up at full capacity for the first time in the future, because I can imagine what it's going to be like the moment that band and those fans actually get to musically touch for the first time.
God, there's no way of being able to put a finer point on it. Is when you play in a band and you can hear a pin drop, like you could hear a pin drop when we play some of Tom's ballads. Mm-hmm. There ain't a dry eye in the house, you know. Mm-hmm. It's that is what feeds. The only reason why I stuck with music my entire life is because of that, because it sure as hell ain't the money.
I don't think anybody in this industry, and that includes all of us behind the scenes, I don't think any of us do it for, I mean, the money's nice, so it is, but I don't think any of us do it for the money. I think we all, even myself, we all do it for the music at the end of the day, you know, for that.
Yeah, but you're not employed in the music industry.
Not anymore.
I've been employed as a musician my entire life.
That's fair. That is absolutely fair. You've been employed as a musician. I've had different positions.
I derive my living. I derive my living directly from playing music.
Yeah, see, mine is from books, but I can go in other areas besides music, right? So that I can completely understand. Absolutely. So it's a different world right now. It is. It's definitely interesting, and hopefully, music comes back with a vengeance as far as, you know, venues and stuff like that. I've had the underground conversation as far as indoor music venues go and festivals getting bigger. What do you think about that? What do you think the indoor venues are going to be like? Do you think things are going to go back to the packed, you know, basement bars?
No, I don't, and I don't want to promote or foresee nothing or talk about doom and gloom. But in reality, the live music industry outside of celebrity, when we talk celebrity, is a different thing. When we're talking about, you know, real people, not celebrities, working and making music, and people supporting live music in other than stadiums and massive concert halls or festivals and stuff like that. When we talk about working music, that model's been dying for a long time. And as we watch all the venues disappear, as they become condos and they become parking lots and they become investment opportunities to developers and stuff like that, we see the loss of habitat for live music to succeed.
Right.
So I'm not going to talk doom and gloom. In all honesty, the people that support live music are 50 plus. They're people that are interested, that have a nostalgia with music, that have a nostalgia with seeing live music and what joy it brings to them, and what they're less concerned about being seen and being seen with their friends and looking like I'm having the bestest time. Look at here. I'm YOLO, FOMO, all the rest of that stuff. That's the way music has been. Young people don't go out to support live music.
Yeah.
There's a few. They'll go see their friends. They might go and see their crazy uncle Larry, play in a band. But kids, no, you're in a bit different because metal generally generates kids and youth, disenfranchised youth. So it's that can have a congregation, very much like punk did back in my day when I used to go see the Dead Kennedys and Angry Red Planet and the Crucifix and DOA and everything else. Yeah, there was a lot of young people at shows. There were some older people too, but it's a very different landscape now. We're at a stage where really young people don't have money. They're not going to pay money to come in and see something. They don't have the money to drink at the bar. And it's been proven time after time after time. I played in a salsa band that was quite popular in this area. Could pack a place, but guess what? People don't drink; they dance. Bar owners are more interested in having young people that'll come drink 5 or 6 beers and go start fistfights out in the parking lot.
It's definitely a different dynamic now.
We're in a very different time, right? So
yes, we absolutely are in a very different time.
Yeah.
So no, I don't know. I always like to pick people's brains about that as far as musicians go, because I mean it's an interesting world right now, and it could go either way. And I've heard people mention, well, maybe it'll go underground, or maybe it'll just go strictly outside, or and I just like to know, I guess.
I'm not going to be all doom and gloom and say that live music is not going to be there. Of course, there will be. The biggest patrons will be the older ones with disposable income and the freedom of time. But the other thing that has to change about that, as far as if you want to get people out to see live music, that's not in even concerts and stuff like that. The concerts end at 11 o'clock at night. Nobody's got time to wait for a band to go on at 10 or 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I was like, geez, I got to be in bed. I can't go to a bar to start seeing music at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. It's got to happen earlier. So start times and end times should definitely reflect that. I'm fortunate enough that most of the groups that I play in and have played in the past little while, I have had a few like bar gigs where I've got to play the whole night and finish at 1 or 1:30. But for the most part, we play 8:30 to 11 in the last little while in most of the groups I play in, and in and out, done. No sticking around till the bitter end, trying to push beer till 2 a.m. To the crowd. That's not what it's about anymore. So. That's where I come from.
See, I don't drink anymore. I haven't drank in 13 years. So, I mean, I do bartend. Occasionally I bartend, and it's definitely a different scene. Even it doesn't matter what kind of music it is. It's definitely a different scene for drinking and going out and hanging out by the bar with your friends to see the band, even from like early 2000 to. We'll say now, even though we've had this last year and a half to sit around. It's definitely a different scene, even from then till now. Like I stopped drinking in 2008, and even from 2000 and early 2000 to 2008, the scene had changed.
Absolutely. When the harsher stance on drinking and driving kind of came in, all of a sudden we noticed vast significance of people not going out for even just a couple of beers because of that. Right. You don't mess around with that and whereas it was a bit laxer before, people might have a few pints and drive here and there. After all the changes and the severity of the law, and people, I guess, becoming woke to that and not doing it anymore means, well, that's change. Times do change.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of got to roll with the punches as far as it's concerned right now, but hopefully things will change for the better, and when things do get open again, I won't say back to normal because things won't be back to normal, but when things do open again, hopefully we can see a level of people being social and wanting to go out. And I mean, I know none of us are going to have any money by the time we get out there, but hopefully it'll be for the sake of being out there, and we'll still be able to have a few pieces of the scene left, I suppose.
Well, I don't think live music virtually until all the boomers are gone, I don't think we're going to see live music end, because there's still a thirst for it.
Yeah, well, my generation will keep it going at least.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope. There are certainly a lot of establishments and venues that I have played or continue to gig in and frequent where there are a built-in crowd, an established built-in crowd that I mean, there's certain things in certain places that, although times do change and stuff like that, as I had mentioned just earlier, venues starting a bit earlier. Well, one of the things that a lot of places had started instituting is matinees during the day for people to be able to go and see live music in the afternoons or early evenings and stuff like that on a Saturday or a Sunday. And absolutely loyal patronage, like places that have been doing that for 20 years or more.
Right.
I could see more of that happening for the people that just casually want to be able to, go out and see music and like not have to stay up too late or whatever, old timer me speaking here. But for the patrons, it's demonstrated that they do that, and they, so maybe there might be some chances at that, and hopefully as things move forward out of the severity of the pandemic, where we're in, perhaps outdoors can get back to things happening outside, socially distanced and or whatever, patios,
right,
etc.
Right. Yeah. No, you had mentioned going to bed early. I mean, I'm not quite 40 yet, and I hit the bed around 8:30. So
Wow.
yeah, I get up around 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I write until the kids get up.
Right.
And then we do school, and yeah, that's my time. And so like, I mean, I can certainly understand wanting to catch a matinee instead of hitting the late show. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, from someone who's been a lifer, even up until the past couple of years, of quite often not getting home and not going to bed till 2 or 3 in the morning, and having to get up with young kids at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm just not that person anymore. I have a hard time if I can keep my eyes open past 11 anymore.
I had to nap today. I won't lie, I had to nap today.
Good for you. So. Well, nice to be afforded the luxury to do so.
Well, if I didn't work from home, then I wouldn't have this opportunity. I just because of the health position I'm in, I'm fortunate that I get to homeschool my kids and work from home. So there's no bars to be open, and there's no mosh pits for me to be in. So this is a perfect place for me to work right now.
Yeah, you're not missing out. Not missing out on anything there, then.
No. I do miss a lot of things of, we'll call it the outside world. I do miss a lot of things about the outside world, but I'm grateful and I'm fortunate that I get to have all this time that I have my kids. So there's a positive in this. It's been a good time, to spend with them, and it's been a good time to really network with a lot of musicians that are really pushing themselves really hard right now to come out bigger, louder, and stronger than we went into this pandemic, right? So
for some people, it's been a very creative time. As I said, speaking for myself, for some others, but I also have a lot of colleagues that have just become so despondent and so confused and depressed,
right?
Because a great musician here locally wrote something back about a month ago that, a couple of months ago, it was like, for the first few weeks or months of the pandemic, and pass by my piano and sit down and play something, or then the next couple of weeks I wouldn't sit down at all, and now I don't even look at it.
Right.
And I saw, from being someone that's a professional tuba player, playing in as many groups. I play usually in half a dozen groups regularly, gigging, like trying not to double book or overbook myself. This is my whole life. I put down my horn for 4 months. I didn't touch it for 4 months. One of the reasons is because it hurts me. I have a torn rotator cuff in my left shoulder here, and it hurts me. Hurts me to sit and play like this on a big instrument and have to hold it. So I put it down for a while, and I just recently, in the past 4 months or 5 months, I'm back to practicing every day, and I'm getting better. but I needed that time to put it down and step away from it, because you know what? Even though I say I love it and stuff like that, it's a job. Music is a job to me, right? And sometimes when you get sick of your job, you do need to step away and walk away.
Yeah. I agree.
And I did, and I stepped away, and then guess what? I started writing songs. And the product of what you got there is, over the course of 30 years of a bunch of half-written, half-done ideas, to things to more than 2/3 of it being written in the last 6 months. Song a week. You know?
Well, it's one hell of a library that you put out in the last little while, as far as the albums throughout the pandemic. It's like, I'll just keep saying it. You know,
well,
like
you do keep saying, I appreciate that. It's good. But what you see is the culmination of over 30 years of writing. And I didn't start writing lyrics, really. I dabbled in it back. I pulled out a sheet for one of those songs. I pulled out a sheet I found in my music right here in the closet. All of a sudden, I found out a sheet from 1996 that I had typed, and I never finished the damn thing. And a couple of those tracks on the on the album, 2 of them on the last album, To Be Young Again, they were songs that had died because of catastrophic hard drive failure. I lost all the session material, all the data from the sessions. But then back about 6 months ago, I found, oh, this is my old iPod Touch. Whoa, what's on here? 2 tracks of that catastrophic hard drive failure that I was able to resurrect and then put drums on and then release them. You know what I mean? It had to go, it kind of, things work in odd, mysterious ways sometimes. I thought, 15, 16 years ago when I lost that stuff, it was gone forever. And then all of a sudden, miraculously, something comes up. I took another tune that I had written the melody and the music for with a group that I played with many, many years ago. And I didn't write lyrics at the time. So one of the band members grabbed it, took this piece and wrote lyrics in French. And it didn't hit the sentiment or anything that I had intended, which was like a Tom Waits ballad. And I came 30 years later, and now I'm going to re-record this song and put my own lyrics to it. And that's a funny thing of it. When we're talking about to be young again, being when we're young, etc., there's a lot of things that you don't think you can do. You know what I mean? I can't, that's too hard. I can't do this. I can't do that. Or I get too frustrated with this. I start writing lyrics and looking at it, it's garbage. Jesus, toss that stuff out. Or it goes sideways. You started something and shelve that, and you just keep shelving things until eventually, the best way to describe it is one of my colleagues, Dr. Mike Daly, who plays in Twax, said to me, you know what? You got to write a bunch of shitty songs before you start writing good ones. And that's something I take completely to heart. You can't conquer Rome in a day. It takes time and effort. People, even like Gordon Lightfoot, are the ones that said, writing songs is hard work. I have to sit at the table every day and force myself to put pen to paper to be able to write those lyrics. It don't just magically flow out of you like water under the bridge, and it's hard, bloody work.
Can be, absolutely.
You also know, as a writer, I'm sure there's times where you can put pen to paper and magic comes out. Other times you can't force that. You couldn't burn it out of you if you had a witch hunt. You couldn't extrapolate it. It's the kind of the thing of the muse, isn't it?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting process, So my publisher calls me a mutant writer, because there's weeks where I won't write a thing, and then I'll write something that should take weeks to write in a day. It just all depends on, like you say, where the flow is, and if there's flow, and like, you can't force it. It's like a watched pot never boils. Right. So if you try to force that writing process, you try to force that music process, it's not going to come out the way you want it to, if at all. Right.
Yet at the same time, we must persevere. right?
100%.
But the thing of it is to approach a lot of this stuff without expectation, without the ego attached. And that's the
Yeah.
one thing that I find the older I get is that whole ethos of like, I'll show you, you sons of guns, how I'm going to turn this around, and you're going to come around to see my way of thinking, and you're going to like what I'm doing. It's like, eventually it's like, I don't care.
Yep.
You like it? That's great. You don't like it? That's fine too.
Whatever. Yep.
I don't care. I really don't care.
No truer words spoken. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And this is the thing, is like, I'm not that old, right? Sometimes every day I feel older, but I'm not that old. But when I wrote "To Be Young Again," in the song, there's some lines, and I just get thinking, nostalgia wise, like, my God, the freedom that we had. We're young to, to be wild and reckless, to gather around in crowds and sing songs that meant everything to us, and kissing that first girl in the back seat of my car, all that stuff. That it's like more than a lifetime ago. It feels like that wasn't even me anymore. That was somebody else.
Yeah.
That's how long,
when there was no consequence.
Yeah.
When there was no consequence to the being reckless, right? Because at the time it wasn't, we see it now as, oh, we were being reckless, but at the time it was life. It was what we wanted to do, and there was no consequence.
That's right.
So that,
the whole feeling of immortality and these days will never end, like this time will never end. We're going to be this way forever. In that immortality, it seems, of youth.
The bush parties that lasted till the sun came up. Those types of things. Somebody brought their guitar, and somebody else brought all the wood, and somebody brought a bottle, and somebody else, stole their parents' stash, and we all hang out till the sun came up because everybody was sleeping at everybody else's house. So it's like being a different person.
Yeah, you're ripping pages out of my diary.
Yeah,
that's the way.
We wrote the same diary.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Tuba 4. You were Juno nominated with them?
The album was longlisted for a Juno in 2018. We didn't make the nomination, but it was submitted and considered.
My apologies. I read that wrong.
That's okay. The group there's a bit of a story to it. I primarily, not anymore, but I primarily was a jazz musician, an improviser musician. And when I moved to Hamilton, I moved to Dundas from Whitehorse. I lived in Whitehorse for almost 15 years.
Wow.
Cutting most of my professional life up there, post-university, post-symphony orchestra for a little bit. And I moved here in 2005, and I had not thrown my hat in the ring, but placed myself strategically around the town, trying to play and get to know people and perform with people. And I had been playing with Mike Treblecock. If you know who Mike Treblecock is, we had a duo called Choir Deets that we were just guitar and tuba and playing around town quite a bit. And a fellow here by the name of Tava, rest in peace, an older fellow here in Hamilton, well connected to the scene, I think saw the potential in me and saw that I was kind of a fearless improviser and could play anything in any style. said, I'm starting up a jam at Stonewall's restaurant. I'm wondering if you'd like to lead a jazz jam on Tuesday nights. I said, sure. I said, what size of house band are you looking at? And he said, a trio. And I said, well, do you want me to strike a band? And he said, yeah. And I thought, well, who do I want to play with around this town? And I thought of the two people that I wanted to play with. One was Danny Lockwood, the drummer, who has played with everyone from Stompin' Tom Connors to Jack DeKaiser's blues band and many others, to Bruce Turney, the keyboard player, whom I built an association with, him as a keyboard player, and us collaborating and playing together and writing. So I put those two guys together, Bruce and Dan, and we had a house gig at Stonewall's hosting the Jazz Jam for almost a year. And then we got seconded, and when that wrapped up, as they all do eventually, all jazz jams eventually die. We went over to the Cat and Fiddle and started a residency as 2 before, and recorded the first album and stayed there for 2.5 years at the Cat and Fiddle. And in that time, I recorded. Bruce had a very large coterie of material, and we recorded those 15 songs, I think, on that first album, just at my studio. And I recorded, self-recorded, produced, and we had it mastered outside. But I did that project by myself because before, when I lived up north, I ran a recording studio professionally for 8 years. So I have the gear and the ear and the talent to be able to do it, as is witnessed in the last 2 albums I did by myself. So we did that album in 2011, and then we did the last one in 2018. And they're just great, fun guys to play with. I'll tell you one thing, again, when it comes down to it, why I picked those guys is because I don't have to think. I just get a chance to, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
Pick a tune. Okay, bang, count it off. And we're there.
Beautiful.
It's like, there's no thinking about it. It's just surround yourself with greatness, and boom. The album that, I don't know if you listened to, the one that you read the 2018 nomination for, it's just a few hours in the studio, 2 days, 3 hours at a session for 2 days, and there's an album.
Well, I imagine if gold had a sound, it would be similar to the things that you have put together over the last little while. That album, being included, it like a lot of the stuff I listen to, I can't say what album it was on, what the name of the song was or anything like that, because I just put it on play on my playlist and put it on repeat. But I definitely could tell you that if I were to hear it somewhere, I'd be able to go, oh, I know that, and be able to tell you at least who the music is, because it really is something to listen to. And it's not that there's a lot going on, but all the stuff that's going on in the songs all just lines up perfectly and matches perfectly.
Yeah, you're talking about my solo albums.
Yes, but I'll anything that I listen to you or listen to by you, I should say. I kind of just put your name in and put the different projects that you had in throughout the day, and whatever came up, I listened to. And then I kind of just created a small playlist out of a lot of the stuff that I liked. And there's a lot going on, but it really is, it's all put in there perfectly so you can hear all of a lot that is going on. It's really neat, actually. You definitely have a different musical ear than most musicians I listen to.
Well, keep in mind, Amanda, as I said, I've done recording and production. When there was actually an industry, a music industry, a recording music industry, and where people actually sold things, like sold physical product and such, I put my hand and my attention at recording and production, and that requires a certain understanding of arranging, right? So it's something that I've done my entire life as a professional. I've written out horn arrangements for various people. I've scored for big band. I've written television and jingles and TV things that one has to understand what it's better to have a bigger bag of tools to draw from than to just have like a hammer, because a hammer can do a lot damage wise, but it can't do that much creative wise. So it's always best to have ourselves aligned with a bigger toolkit than a smaller toolkit. Playing a bunch of instruments, having a background for over a decade and a half of doing recording and production helps to be able to suss out an arrangement. But at the same time, take for instance, as I had mentioned, none of the sessions happened with me overlooking and presiding over, with people contributing their parts to my album. But sometimes things don't work. And it's always comes to a point where you have to look at something and go, does this serve the song or serve the project, or am I trying to be too precious on something, or trying to fit a square peg into a round hole? And that comes to hit you a few times. Take for instance, I had tried to incorporate my children, who are both considerable violinists, to play on one of my songs, and I rehearsed with them, and it's not that they couldn't play it. It would be that I don't believe that it would suit the song without bringing in professionals, but I wanted to have my children on this project. So I had to rethink that, because it wasn't strong enough to be able to go on that one particular song. So I chose a different song for them to play where it would show their strengths, right?
Right.
And that means I had to rethink the other song. I ended up putting in a horn section, doing those parts instead, and voila, it works. But I'm not going to pat myself on the back over it. Being a professional and doing it my entire life, I damn well better be able to write and record things. Because if I couldn't, boy, I'd find myself to be a huge fraud. I turn out to be Milli Vanilli of Hamilton.
Good band pick.
Yeah, you gotta be able to cut the mustard. It's
absolutely.
It's no different than when going into doing things. I told you I struck up a band with two before. Who do I want to play with? Bang, there's a couple of people I want to play with. When it comes to having people record on my project, I call in the ringers. I don't go, oh, I know this cousin of mine, she can sing, or my ex's brother-in-law, well, he can play drums kind of okay. It's like, no, you don't do that. I don't do that.
Well, no, I mean, if you want to produce a good product, you put good product, right? You take from good product to produce good product, I suppose.
That's right.
So, not to say that your friend Mike isn't a good drummer, or, your cousin Susie isn't a good guitar player, but sometimes you have to go with what you know, when it comes to quality.
You pick what's going to suit the project, right? That's the bottom line.
That's a better way to put it.
What is going to serve the product and the project at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
That's where I kind of come from on that. And again, having learned that from experience, coming up, learning how to record, learning how to produce and stuff like that, and being in a situation where someone says, oh yeah, my aunt, she's real great harmony vocalist, we can use her for, and then realizing, that did not work, and that does not work.
Yeah.
You learn the hard way, right?
Right.
You don't want to make that mistake again. So.
Well, that's why we learn the hard way. So we only make that mistake once, right?
Correct.
So then it becomes a lesson versus a mistake, which isn't necessarily
correct.
a bad thing.
Absolutely.
So, when you learn something, is it really a mistake? So.
Well, you need the thing, and this is another thing, coming from being a professional musician and stuff like that, something that I was it wasn't something that I was taught as much as I learned, is that you have to go into a mistake honestly. You can't try and avoid that thing that's dogging you, that you're technically trying to try and avoid it, because it's the same thing as just trying to get my kids to learn how to play a piece correctly. I said, all you need to do is slow it down to where you can effectively play this passage through correctly. And then you know what you do? You speed it up incrementally, slowly speed it up so you can get that passage up to speed. But if you learn it wrong, or you avoid it and don't go into it honestly, you'll never learn. You'll never learn from that mistake. You need to make the mistake honestly, and then you go, oh, eureka, I understand what it takes now to get past that.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that when it comes to walking into, like you say, walking into mistakes honestly, when you have that accountability, it makes it easier for you to move on from making that mistake, and whatever, and moving on from that, versus not, like you say, not being honest about it, or not being able to hold yourself accountable to the honesty to be able to get through that mistake.
Now, there is a difference in speaking about technical things, like no different than you being a high-level athlete, or you being a fighter or whatever. It's you have to be able to technically do things. If you don't ever there's no difference in learning how to ski. Remember the first time you skied? You just went down the hill like that.
I didn't get down the hill.
Bones and smash stuff like that. You need to learn how to be able to gracefully, coast side to side, to be able to keep your feet together, to be able to swish, blah, blah, blah. These are all technical things, right? And when it comes to execution, if you're not willing to do the hard work, well, good luck. You're not willing to do the hard work, you're not going to get there. You got to do the hard work.
No, absolutely. That's definitely how we get to where we are, as far as honing the crafts of the things that we do.
Mm-hmm.
So we're coming up on our hour. Is there anything else that, like, we've covered a lot as far as conversation goes, but is there anything else you want to tell everybody that we haven't spoken about?
Well, one thing we haven't spoken about, and that's the elephant in the room. Streaming.
Yes.
Streaming is killing music, and it's killing the creation of music. People will still create music. Yes, they will. That's going to happen. But streaming is killing the independent artist. The only reason why I don't really have, I did put my second to last album up on the streaming services after I had already monetized it, because I would never have been able to pay off what that album cost me in hard costs if I just put it on streaming services. Not that it cost me a lot, because I'm talking about my sweat and my blood, not hard costs.
Cost doesn't have to be cash.
The hard costs were very very small, really. In all seriousness, not much at all. But without me putting putting those hard costs in, I wouldn't have a product, right?
Right.
And the streaming services are parasitic operations that are that there is not one streaming artist that is making what the executives in the office at Spotify and their various offices in six figures a year. I don't know a musician shy of the major hitter players that is making 6 figures a year. And we're talking about people previously that are darlings of CBC, people that sell out internationally, play big ticket shows and stuff like that. No one's able to make any money on streaming music. And that is a crime. It's a crime that deserves to be amended by our government, by our music union, and the various people that will not settle for fractions of a penny. Like getting 1 million spins is enough to be able to equate to make about $750.
I know.
1 million spins.
It's insane.
Think about that.
No, you're absolutely right about that being criminal.
And I want people to think about that too,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just you're gonna see a dark age in terms of music and content creation if it can't be held to a certain standard. You're not going to hear things come out that are really worth listening to. And if we actually put our ears to there is interesting stuff coming out these days, mind you. I will say there is, but you got to sift through a whole bunch of crap to be able to get to it.
Yes. I was talking, myself and TJ had an interview with Dan Varga from Svengali. He's the drummer,
right.
A few months ago. And he was saying that, it's a beautiful and evil thing, because we've got this level playing field where everybody gets a chance. But we've got this level playing field where everybody gets a chance. And not to say that everybody doesn't deserve it, but like you say, there is a lot of great music coming out there. But because everybody can just kind of throw it all out on the table, you're right. There's a lot to sift through to get to find all those gems.
Keep in mind, like this is the age-old argument. The democratization of the music industry has been a wonderfully great thing,
mm-hmm.
but it has also been the death of the industry,
Yep.
Right? So we're looking at, back 20, 30 years, 25 years ago, when I had to invest, and I still invest, I had to invest $25,000 just to walk in the door back then. To start recording, back when you're talking about having a tower this tall and having huge interfaces and horsepower cards to be able to play 8 tracks of audio. Oh my God, 8 tracks of audio.
My heart.
A gigabyte hard drive costs $1,000.
I know.
And now we're to the stage where anybody with a microphone and a computer can make music.
Right.
But to monetize it, that's the hard thing, right?
Right.
To be able to monetize what your product that you're making, what you're selling, it's harder than ever. And until we cross that line and have that hard talk with the powers that be, the governments and the abusers, etc., let's be cautiously optimistic that not just the music industry comes back, live music comes back, and I can go back to doing what I love, playing with the people I love, and a bunch of people that I don't know that hopefully I will love.
Right.
In doing so, and meeting all the people that I see, and the people that reinforce to us, my God, I can't tell you how much coming here meant to me tonight.
Yeah.
The times in my life where I've had people say, people I haven't seen for years, they come up and say, you have no idea what this meant to me tonight. I drove from high level Alberta to come see you in Edmonton tonight. And you have no idea how important this is to me. That's the stuff that keeps me going in this business, because it ain't about the paycheck, and it hasn't been for a really long time, although it is.
Right. Yeah, but there's no better paycheck than the appreciation for what you put your blood, sweat, and tears into.
You're telling
Money
me.
can't buy that.
That's
it can't
right.
pay for it either.
It hasn't yet. I'm hoping.
That's fair.
Okay, well, it's great talking with you, Amanda.
Absolutely. I got one more question for you. Aside from BandCamp down on the bottom of our screen, where else can we find you before we kick the world out?
Well, I've posted a few videos on my YouTube channel, which is the same handle, NJ Burr, first initial NJ Burr. You can find me on YouTube and a few things that I've done there. I have released my previous album, Stay With Me, on the streaming services, and you can find me on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, I believe a few others. I don't support them. I don't visit them, so I can't tell you. But it will be under my artist name, NJ Burr. You'll be able to find streaming stuff there as well. And if you look hard enough, you can find any of the probably 150 albums I've played on over the past 30 years. If you look up my name, you might find some Juno-nominated albums, some West Coast Music Award albums. One of the albums I just did, a kids album, has achieved, I can't remember, the Canada Folk Music Awards. for best children's album. So I have a lot of things in the hat over the past 35 years of playing professionally. So if you look hard enough, you might look under a rock and find what I'm doing.
Well, that's absolutely awesome. And I'm going to keep looking and see what other stuff I can find of yours because, like I said, hands down, everything I've enjoyed. And hopefully, anybody else that's been watching tonight and that does watch in the future gets to find your stuff and enjoy it as much as I have.
Very good. Tell everyone you know.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm going to send off the show and stick around for 2 more minutes, get backstage, and yeah,
Sure.
we're good for the evening. So it's been a pleasure and an honor, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, and thanks for anyone out there is watching. Thanks for your comments. I'm not chatting with people in the chat room there, but thanks for being here and thanks for sending in your support.
Yeah, I threw in a hey, and I'll make sure that I update on those comments as soon as we're out of here. So on that note, everybody have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you in a minute, sir.
Very good. Take care. Are we there?